Dear Samsung, you inspired me to make this video as a response to your most recent lineup of phones, mainly the Galaxy Note 5 and the Galaxy S6 Edge Plus. First off the bat, a lot of you are just gonna call me an Apple fanboy and an Apple sheep. And yes, I do have an Apple Watch, I do have an iPad, I have an iPhone, I have an iMac, and I have 3 other Macs, and I have some Apple IIs on the floor here. So yes, I'm just gonna come out and say it, I'm an Apple sheep, I'm an Apple fanboy, I buy their stuff. But that doesn't mean I hate Samsung, I'm just really not liking where they're going now. And it's more than just hate on Apple, it's more about lacking originality. Before you start commenting, hear me out. So when the S6 Edge came out, I did make a video about it, and I was complimenting how interesting that technology was. They're the first big smartphone people to put a curve on that display, and that's really cool. But it was becoming a little obvious that they were going exactly for what an iPhone looked and felt like. First with the aluminum build and the glass on both sides to make sure design is on point, but overall very similar to an iPhone. This was also the first phone they didn't have a removable battery or a removable microSD slot. Now in that keynote they announced we were okay with people exchanging these things to make the phone better, and now they're sure that it's as good as any consumer could make it, and that's why they're getting rid of that feature, is because you can expand up to 128 gigabytes on the S6 Edge. That's great, and the battery life's very long, it charges very quickly, so the reasoning behind that made sense to me. On the Galaxy Note 5, not so much. The consumer market for the Note series was always about people who wanted their smartphones to be top of the line, best specs around, and you'd think they'd still let them change the battery or change the SD card slot because the Note 5 is basically a pro version of the S phones. At least that's what I thought they should do. Make the Note its own thing for the creators, for the people who want those high-end specs. Having used the Note 4, I can say it is great for those types of people. But with the Note 5, they're actually cutting back on battery, and the highest storage configuration you can get is 64 gigabytes. Yeah, that's a lot, but I can say from firsthand experience that the amount of storage you have on your device defines how much you can do with that device. You can fill that with games, with movies, you know how it works. And to suddenly cut back on that and have no available option to expand, but then again change everything in terms of design to the point where it looks and feels like an Apple product, like an iPhone. This bothers me because it feels like they're more worried about taking sales away from Apple and not really trying to come up with something new and unique. I was always very jealous of Samsung phones because their specs were always twice of that of an iPhone's. Way up there. The cores, and above all, that expandable storage. That was amazing. Having lots of different batteries, that means you could go on a trip and exchange them out. Gonna have to buy accessories if you want to do that now. So what's bothering me the most is they're taking things from Apple's design that were problems with Apple's design. In other words, they're getting rid of the benefits they had. In other words, they were still fairly different from iPhones before. I thought the Galaxy S5 was the coolest Samsung phone ever because without a case, it was durable, it was waterproof, dustproof, and you could still take off the back and expand everything. That's pretty amazing, and they threw all that out for a curved display. Now, I think it's great that they innovated a new way to do this with the curved display, but people who have used it, including myself, have not really seen it as a game changer. And you can tell they don't see it as a game changer either because they still allow an S6 version without the curved display. This means they didn't have a lot of faith in it. They were too nervous to change the phone industry. And then again, Samsung does like to have choices for people. But I believe one of the most key choices that Samsung owners had and iPhone owners didn't was expandable storage and changeable batteries. And the design was pretty themselves too. They could take off the backs and you could change them, and there were leather designs, all kinds of things. And now they've gone so Apple, I mean, it's impossible to deny they're not just ripping it off. And you can see that it's obvious they want to make better phones than Apple in their marketing campaigns especially. If you watch any of the Samsung ads where they're comparing the iPhone, we get it, Samsung, your phones are way, way, way better. But I think it's pretty obvious that the people that choose an iPhone over a Samsung device aren't interested in specs, they're interested in the interface. In other words, this isn't a comparing of hardware, it's more of a comparing of software. Since I can't run iOS on a Samsung device, that's why I'm not going to get one. And this brings me to my final question that I want to talk about, which is it okay for companies to copy each other? I'm sure you were thinking this during this video, is Apple has copied things from Samsung. That's very true. true, most mainly with making their phones bigger or moving the on and off button to the side. And I think iOS 7 kind of took a lesson from Android. It kind of gave it that fresh, clean look. So yes, both companies have copied from each other, and do we think that's okay? This might surprise you, but I think it is. Yeah, it's kind of mean and it's cheap to take designs from other companies and turn them into your own thing, but Apple has bought other inventions and brought them into its empire, all for the greater good of the best product possible. So if Samsung is copying from Apple a lot, they are, if they can make a device better than an iPhone, then yes, they have the right to do so. All in all, this is a business and we're in a consumer market. Whoever can make the best product wins, and that's not a nice game. They're mean to each other, they steal from each other, and Samsung will make it obvious that theirs is better. What I want Samsung to take from this message is be your own thing. In a perfect world and you outsell Apple and Apple goes out of business and dies, yes, that's very unlikely, but that seems to be the ultimate goal. If that happened, you'd have to innovate for yourself. And once you become the most popular smartphone, other smaller companies will start copying you, and then all the tables have been turned. I want Samsung to go back to the S5 approach, making it extremely durable and interchangeable. I thought they had an incredible device there that had its own original design and so many more perks than an iPhone, and I was jealous of the people that had that. Samsung, don't take away from Apple's design. Take away their idea of being iconic, of being recognizable. Be original. That's the thing no one has really copied from Apple. I'll leave you with a quote that was probably said by Steve Jobs. We're gonna look at the competition and not make it better, but make it different. Thanks for watching.